Vance, Estados Unidos. No está en guerra con Irán, sino contra la amenaza nuclear. El vicepresidente Vance aclara la postura de Estados Unidos sobre el programa nuclear de Irán y las acciones militares.
And joining me now is Vice President J.D. Vance. Vice President Vance, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Kristen. Great to be with you.
Thank you for being here on a monumental Sunday. My first question, Mr. Vice President, is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. And let me just say, Kristen, that we're incredibly grateful and proud of the American Air Force pilots who did an incredible job last night. The operation was really extraordinary. These guys flew from Missouri. They didn't land a single time. They dropped 30,000-pound bombs on a target the size of a washing machine and then got back home safely without ever landing in the Middle East or ever stopping other than to briefly refuel. And of course, they did that in the air. So it's really an incredible operation, a testament to the power of American military. And I think what shows what can happen when you have that great American military in the hands of capable presidential leadership. What we did is we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. I think we set that program back substantially, and we did it without endangering the lives of the American pilots. That's an incredible thing, and I think we all should be proud. Whatever our politics, we should be proud of what these guys accomplished. A very, very high-impact mission under a lot of pressure.
Mr. Vice President, let's talk about what happens next. President Trump posted on social media, quote, any retaliation by Iran will be met with force greater than what was witnessed tonight. If Iran retaliates against the U.S., as it is threatening, what will the United States response be?
Well, Krista, that's ultimately going to be the president's decision. But what we've said to the Iranians is we do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace. But we want peace in the context of them not having a nuclear weapons program. And that's exactly what the president accomplished last night. I really think there are two big questions for the Iranians here. Are they going to attack American troops, or are they going to continue with their nuclear weapons program? And if they leave American troops out of it and they decide to give up their nuclear weapons program once and for all, then I think the president has been very clear. We can have a good relationship with the Iranians. We can have a peaceful situation in that region of the world. We have to step back a little bit, Kristen, and remind ourselves that we negotiated aggressively with the Iranians to try to find a peaceful settlement to this conflict. It was only when the president decided that the Iranians were not negotiating in good faith that he took this action. He didn't take it lightly, but I actually think it provides an opportunity to reset this relationship, reset these negotiations, and get us in a place where Iran can decide not to be a threat to its neighbors, not to be a threat to the United States. And if they're willing to do that, the United States is all ears.
Well, let's talk about the possibility of negotiations. I mean, the Iranian foreign minister responded to the strikes this morning saying Israel and the U.S. have, quote, blown up diplomacy. Mr. Vice President, is there any real hope for diplomacy, or is diplomacy dead at this point?
Well, I think the foreign minister is exactly wrong. We didn't blow up diplomacy. We only took this action, Kristen, when it was clear, as the president said, that the Iranians were tapping us along. I think it's important for the American people to appreciate here that if you go back to March of this year, we had the entire administration engaged in this diplomatic effort. And frankly, in March of this year, we had some optimism. How do we get from there to now? And the answer is we felt very strongly that the Iranians were stonewalling us. They weren't taking this seriously. They were trying to draw this process out as long as possible so that they could rebuild their nuclear weapons program without the threat of American action. We had a limited window in which we could take out this Fordo nuclear facility in particular. The president decided to take it, but we didn't blow up the diplomacy. The diplomacy never was given a real chance by the Iranians. And our hope, Kristen, as the president said repeatedly, is that this maybe can reset here. The Iranians have a choice. They can go down the path of peace, or they can go down the path of this ridiculous brinksmanship of funding terrorism, of trying to build a nuclear weapon, and that's just not something the United States can accept. I want to say something, Kristen, just to the Iranian leadership. Look, they have tried to build a nuclear weapons program. That program is now destroyed. They tried to build a conventional missile program to attack neighbors in the region. That missile program has shown to be a failure. They have funded terrorism aggressively in the region, and now most of their terrorism proxies are destroyed. The Iranians are clearly not very good at war. Perhaps they should follow President Trump's lead and give peace a chance. If they're serious about it, I guarantee you the President of the United States is too.
So has the administration received any messages from the Iranians since the attack overnight?
Well, Kristen, I think as we sit here, it's been about 12 hours since what happened last night. We have received some indirect messages from the Iranians, and it's possible, of course, that some of my colleagues in the administration received something early this morning, and I haven't heard about it. But look, our expectation is we're going to learn a lot about what the Iranians want to do, how they want to proceed over the next 24 hours. Again, I just can't be clear enough here. The president has said he wants now to engage in a diplomatic process, but if the Iranians are not going to play ball here, they didn't leave us many options as it pertains to last night, and they won't leave us many options in the future.
If Iran disrupts shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, which of course handles about a quarter of the world's oil trade, would that be a red line for the United States, Mr. Vice President?
Well, Kristen, I think our biggest red line is the Iranian nuclear weapons program. That is really what the president has said we need to get rid of.
But obviously, what about the Strait of Hormuz?
Steps towards doing that last night. Well, I think that would be suicidal, Kristen, for the Iranians themselves. I mean, their entire economy runs through the Strait of Hormuz. If they want to destroy their own economy and cause disruptions in the world, I think that would be their decision. But why would they do that? I don't think it makes any sense. I don't think that it makes sense for them or for anybody else. What would make sense is for them to come to the negotiating table, to actually give up their nuclear weapons program over the long term. And again, if they're willing to do that, they're going to find a willing partner in the United States of America.
Mr. Vice President, when did President Trump exactly make this decision, and did he coordinate with Israel?
The president, honestly, Kristen, I don't know that any of us knew exactly when the president made the decision, except for the president himself. But if you back up a little bit, we engaged in this diplomatic process. I think that he decided probably by mid-May that this process was not going anywhere, and so he decided to issue some private ultimatums to the Iranians. And then eventually, of course, we decided to destroy the Fordo nuclear facility and some of these other facilities ourselves. I think one of the things that you saw from the president's team, and I really am proud of all of our guys at the senior team, is an operation of this magnitude, multiple B-2s, 14 30,000-pound bombs, and even an hour after the attack, the entire media, some of our enemies all over the world, they had no idea this was happening. And that's because you had a coherent team that was aligned behind the president's vision. There weren't any leaks. I think that made our troops safer as they carried out this mission. And so it's really a testament to the entire team that we were able to do something like this at this scale without anybody noticing it.
But Mr. Vice President, if I could just try again, can you give me a specific date when President Trump said go? Was it Thursday? Was it yesterday before the B-2s left? When exactly did President Trump give that green light, that go?
Well, the final decision, Kristen, of course, is made right before, and I'm talking about minutes before the bombs were dropped. And of course, well, that was last night. And the president made very clear that the purpose here is to eliminate the Iranian nuclear program. So I think that he himself, over time, decided this was necessary. But of course, he had the ability to call off this attack until the very last minute. He obviously decided to proceed. And I think that we did great things for the American people because of it.
You know, the president says the nuclear enrichment sites were, quote, completely and totally obliterated. There is some question about that, though, this morning. Do you have 100% confidence that Iran's nuclear sites were totally destroyed?
Well, Kristen, I'm not going to get into sensitive intelligence about what we've seen on the ground there in Iran, but we've seen a lot, and I feel very confident that we have substantially delayed their development of a nuclear weapon, and that was the goal of this attack. That's why it was a success. And of course, what happens next, again, Kristen, is up to the Iranians.
Substantially delayed by years? What does substantial
Well, again, Kristen,
mean?
I'm not going to get into sensitive intelligence here, but I think that we have really pushed their program back by a very long time. I think that it's going to be many, many years before the Iranians are able to develop a nuclear weapon. But again, our goal is that they're never able to develop a nuclear weapons program. And that is a conversation that we're going to have with the Iranians and also with our allies in the region.
So Iran, again, has said that it would retaliate if the U.S. got involved. There are some 40,000 American troops in the Middle East. The Pentagon is on high alert. Is the U.S. bracing for Iran to target American troops in the region?
We're, of course, Kristen, doing everything that we can to keep our people safe. I think that we're prepared in the event that the Iranians do retaliate. But my message to the Iranians is it would be the stupidest thing in the world if they did. If you look at what happened last night, we had an incredibly targeted, precise, surgical strike on the nuclear facilities that are the target of the American operation. Our national interest is for Iran to not get a nuclear weapon. Our strikes last night facilitated that national objective. If the Iranians want to enlarge this by attacking American troops, I think that would be a catastrophic mistake. And as the president said last night, the Iranians would be met with then overwhelming force beyond that. So this is a very delicate moment, Kristen. I don't want to pretend that it's not. But I think the Iranians, if they're smart, they're going to have to look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe we're not so good at this war thing. Let's give peace a chance. Let's drop our nuclear weapons program and start to make some smarter decisions. We're, of course, hoping that's exactly what the Iranians do.
And I have a number more questions, so I want to keep moving. How concerned is the administration that Iran or Iranian proxies could carry out a terrorist attack inside the United States?
Well, unfortunately, Kristen, we know that a lot of people who we don't have full accounting of were let in over the last 4 years under the Biden administration. We know that some of those people were on terrorism watch lists. We feel very confident in our FBI and law enforcement that we're on top of this situation. But yeah, we're looking at this very closely. We're doing everything that we can to keep our people safe. And this is one of the reasons why border security is national security, is if you let a bunch of crazy people into your country, those crazy people can eventually take action. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that doesn't happen and to keep Americans safe.
Mr. Vice President, can you rule out that getting involved in this conflict won't eventually lead to U.S. boots on the ground?
Well, the president's been very clear, Kristen. We have no interest in a protracted conflict. We have no interest in boots on the ground. The president has actually been one of the fiercest critics of 25 years of failed foreign policy in the Middle East, which is why he did what he did. A very precise, a very surgical strike tailored to an American national interest. And that national interest is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It would be a disaster for us and for our allies in the region. So I don't fear that this is going to become a protracted conflict, because I think that we have a president who knows what's in America's interest and is willing to do the things necessary to accomplish that interest.
As you know, after an Iranian missile struck a hospital in Israel this week, Israel's defense minister said the Ayatollah, quote, can no longer be allowed to exist. Does the United States support Israel killing Iran's leader?
Well, look, that's up to the Israelis, but our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here. We believe very strongly that there are two pathways. There's a pathway where Iran continues to fund terrorism, continues to try to build a nuclear program, attacks American troops. That's the bad pathway for Iran, and it will be met with overwhelming force. There's another pathway on the table here. There's a pathway where Iran integrates itself into the international community, stops funding terrorism, and stops trying to pursue a nuclear weapon. This is a reset. This is an opportunity for the Iranians to take the smart path. We certainly hope that they will.
Couple more questions, and we're almost out of time. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said in March that, quote, Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. Democratic Senator Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee, said he was briefed on Monday that, quote, the intelligence hasn't changed. So why launch this strike now? Has the intelligence changed, Mr. Vice President?
Well, a couple of things about that, Kristen. So what Tulsi said back in March is that Iran was producing highly enriched uranium that was only consistent with them wanting to build a nuclear weapon. There's, of course, an open question about whether they were weeks away, whether they were months away, but they were way too close to a nuclear weapon for the comfort of the President of the United States, which is why he took this action. Now, there's another element here, too, Kristen, which is that we had a narrow window of opportunity. We might not have been able to carry out this attack 6 months down the road. And so when you recognize, on the one hand, the Iranians are trying to get a nuclear weapon, and on the other hand, we have a narrow window in which we can set that program back a very long time, it would have been irresponsible, I think, for the president not to take the action that he did, which is why Fordo was destroyed last night.
And just to be very clear, did the president say go based on U.S. intelligence or Israeli intelligence?
Well, of course, we share intelligence with a lot of agencies, British, Israeli, and so forth, but it was our intelligence that motivated us to act. And I think on the intelligence, Kristen, the thing that I would really emphasize is the way in which the Iranians seem to be stonewalling us. That was not, by the way, our consensus back in March of this year. We saw the Iranians making some concessions. We thought the conversations were actually productive. By mid-May, everybody in our intelligence community and the president's senior team looked at ourselves and said, the Iranians are not being serious. They're no longer making concessions. They're no longer actually responding to some of the offers that we're making. If you believe, as we did, that the Iranians are rushing towards a nuclear weapons program while simultaneously refusing to negotiate, how could we do anything but take serious action against this program?
Do you and President Trump trust the U.S. intelligence community and its assessments?
Oh, of course we trust our intelligence community, but we also trust our instincts, and most importantly, we trust what the intelligence was telling us about the Iranians stonewalling the negotiation. I think that is really the hidden story here, and something the media has got to report a little bit more here, is that the Iranians stopped negotiating in good faith. That was the real catalyst, I think, to what the president ultimately decided to do. If we were having a productive negotiation, I think that this could have gone in a much different pathway. Unfortunately, the Iranians decided to stonewall us, and we saw the consequences of that last night.
Mr. Vice President, very quickly, as you know, this is dividing lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Many Republicans supportive, but Congressman Thomas Massie saying this was unconstitutional. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying it's grounds for impeachment, saying the president should have gotten congressional approval first. What do you say to members of Congress who say it was unconstitutional for the president to act unilaterally?
Well, I'd say two things, Kristen, and this is very important. First of all, the president has clear authority to act to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and the worst weapon of mass destruction of them all is nuclear. The idea that this was outside of presidential authority, I think any real serious legal person would tell you that's not true. And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. We've got in, we've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do. Simple principle. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That has animated American policy over the past 130 days. It's going to continue to be a driving force of our policy in the Middle East for the next 3.5 years.